I started Life on Lemonade 2 years ago because of some of the lemons that life has handed me that have dragged in very valuable life lessons. At its very core, I am my most honest self while writing. And this process has evolved over the last 2 years, and part of this evolution is what I'm doing today, shooting my very first video for Life on Lemonade. The topic that I chose is something that everybody experiences, and it's absolutely inescapable: grief. Over the last couple years, I've had very close encounters with people that have lost family members very close to them, a husband, a child, a father, and I found myself very ill-equipped to be there for them in the capacity that I should, and that just didn't feel right. And that has been the reason why I'm doing this video, in order for us to examine how we interact with people that are grieving. I am today interviewing 3 very special people to me that have been dealing with a very great loss, and they do it so gracefully on most days. So here's introducing the 3 people I'm very happy to do this video with, starting with Stephanie Gomes. Stephanie lost her father, Brendan, 2 years ago. He died by suicide. Welcome, Stephanie. My next guest is Alethea Baptista. Ali lost her father, Michael, in 2016 to a very sudden heart attack. And last but not the least is Rebecca Leslie. Rebecca lost her older sister, Melissa, 14 years ago to brain cancer. So thank you very much, ladies, for being here today to actually show us what it is like to coexist with grief. Talk to me a little about the most widely and loosely used term, time is a healer.
I think it's something that people default to because it's easy and they think it helps. It doesn't. Time doesn't heal. Time makes it easier to carry. It doesn't make it any lighter. It's something that I think is said as a mean well, but it doesn't help. It's very frustrating because you're not going to heal from this. You're not going to recover from this. You're going to learn to live with it, but it's not something that's ever going to heal.
Yeah, I agree with Rebecca. I think that's something that I heard so much. And time it doesn't heal. I think if you're not willing to do the work, which is, addressing your emotions and then sitting, letting yourself sit with it and feel it through and through, then time is nothing but a carrier. And and that's something I learned the hard way. I think after I experienced loss, I think I shut down and dissociated for a whole year, and then was forced to deal with it, I think 3 years later.
Yeah, I think that it implies that you're going to reach a point of complete healing, and you can't reach a point of complete healing. It's a void that can never go away. And I agree with you that people say it because they mean well, and I've always appreciated that aspect of it, but there's days where it's like you have a wound and it's just a scab and it's there and you know it's there, but you know what, you're living your life and you're fine. You're not fine, but you know that there's something off. But then there's days where, special days, where the wound opens a little bit and you feel it a little bit deeper. And then there's days where you're just bleeding and nothing can help. So I agree that it does help you carry your grief and coexist with it, but it never goes.
The best takeaway from this is time is a great carrier. So yeah, that very wonderfully put. I'm going to move on to my next question, which is, how has loss changed you?
This is the part where I'd like to do a shout out to my therapist, Christy, if you're watching. So Christy explains this to me very, very well. It's like we're all made up of different parts of ourselves, and there's a part that's protective, that protects you from any hurt. And then there's a part that is more like the go-getter, and that's the part that helps you cope with things, where you start to list things and try and control the outcomes. And I think for a long time I kind of lost my voice. I wasn't able to recognize myself after I lost my dad, because there's a big part of you that like relies on someone that is attached to that person, and when you lose that person, no matter how much you want to believe that they're around and that their presence is still there, it's not. And so I kind of lost that sense of self, and I still like do the work where I have to treat that part of me like it's a version of me that I need to then soothe, like as if it's a small child that I'm talking to, and teaching myself again how to speak up for myself and how to create boundaries with people and how to nurture it.
Wow. I do think that there is a different outcome of my life because of the tragedies that I went through at such a young age, that it did shape who I am. And I think had that not happened, I can't say what the other version of myself would be, but I think it would be a little less guarded, a little less bitter. I do think it completely changed the trajectory of who I became for the most part.
Yeah, so that's from a perspective of somebody that lost someone like 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think that the version of yourself before, you kind of grieve them too, right? Like you're grieving the loss of the person, but you're also kind of looking to that version of yourself and thinking like, what would they do? How would they perceive this? And I think part of your grief journey is really just understanding that person might not come back, right? Like the old version of yourself. And you kind of just have to get to know your current self and just take it from there.
So you're carrying grief as well as the understanding of who you now are, if I'm summarizing that correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, another great takeaway. Okay, I'm going to move on to my third question. This is a big one. Okay. People are often not very comfortable with talking about loss and grief. People will reach out to us. There is no shortage of love and concern. People will reach out to us, but often
people will try to give you their own experience. Sometimes this helps and sometimes it doesn't. Talk to me about what that is, and if you all have any advice for people.
How much time do we have? I think for me, the number one thing, so my dad had a very long history of addiction and mental health, and I think that people's initial response, and I get it to an extent, but people's initial response is always, oh, he was suffering so much when he was here, he's in a better place. And when my dad just died, I always thought, how is he in a better place? He's not here. So I hate that. That's the number. Don't say that. Don't say they're in a better place, because yes, if you're religious, you might believe that they're in heaven or whatever your religious belief tells you that the afterlife looks like. But I hate when people say they're in a better place, because if they're not with you, then how is that a better place? And I think another one that people often do is they try to compare to a loss that they've also experienced. So I've had people say, I know exactly what you're feeling because my 97-year-old mother just died. And I said, well, I get that. I get that you've lost a parent, but did you lose a parent when you were 23? No. So I think that my advice to people would be, yes, always check in on people who've lost, but let them take the conversation where they want it to.
Yeah. So I think the one that just every time gets me is, but everything happens for a reason. Tell me why an 18-year-old died of brain cancer. Just say nothing, or just say, I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. I'm here if you need to call or vent or cry or just sit there and watch TV with you. Those are better answers than everything happens for a reason. They're in a better place. They're at peace now. That's not helping. That's actually, at least for me, making me very angry. A parent is different. A sibling is different. Your age when this happens is different. Just don't compare. It's not a competition. Nobody wants to win this competition. So just don't. Just be there for people. And that's probably the best advice if you don't know what to say.
I think for me, the thing that really riled me up was be strong. Because what does be strong really mean? Like, I feel like people have such a hard time letting people feel their emotions. And emotions are almost seen as a bad thing. Crying is seen as a bad thing. And I didn't let myself cry because I was so scared of not being strong. And I think don't tell anyone to be strong, because that's the time to let them unravel.
Yeah.
And that's the time that, and they are being strong.
Yeah.
Letting themselves feel what they're feeling is strength, because it takes a certain amount of courage to let yourself be sad and to let yourself just sit with whatever you're feeling and be okay with it. The best thing that someone did for me was show up and give me a hug,
Yeah.
because I think I needed it. But yeah, that's
No, that was the whole reason of the question, right? Because we go through our lives thinking that we know exactly what to say because we've been to X number of funerals and we know so many people that are grieving, but actually you have to unlearn to relearn what you really need to say to people that are grieving. So very, very helpful. Okay, another big one. I'm sure there are attributes, there is a place, there is a thing, there is an action that you associate so very strongly with the person that you have lost that if you come across this on the daily, it can completely unravel you. What do you all do when this happens?
sorry, but shout out to Christy. Christy, the thing to do, so we put so much emotion into certain things and objects, right? I used to feel that way every time a song came on that reminded me of my dad. It was his favorite song. It was the Billy Joel Piano Man.
Of course.
And the reason I felt so suffocated every time it came on was because I was not able to deal with the emotions that came with it. But I think it was Christy who taught me to just feel the feelings.
Yeah.
Because what's it gonna do, right? What are your emotions gonna do? They cannot harm you in any way. And you just like feel your feelings, and I think that helped me cope. Every time Billy Joel's Piano Man comes on, I'm able to now listen to it and not feel the big lump in my throat. Yeah, I think it's just letting yourself feel it.
What it took me over a decade to learn is to not apologize for feeling the feels. You get welled up and you get the line, you're saying, oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm sorry. But it's learning to not apologize for feeling my feelings, to take the moment, to sometimes if it is, just walk away, feel, and come back. But it's learning to be like, this is normal, this is okay.
Yeah, I think that for me, the songs were definitely a huge thing, where you hear it and it kind of just takes you back to, you know, a memory or a feeling. But I think that it's kind of a reminder, not that we need the reminder, but it's a reminder that they existed. And I always, oh my god, it's just me blubbering today. It's always a reminder that they were here.
Yeah.
And so for me, even if it's like seeing a cardinal in my backyard or hearing the song, I remember that they were here. And so I find that beautiful, because even if it makes you well up and kind of lose what you think is progress, what makes you lose what you think is progress,
Yeah.
you know that there was someone here who loved you so much that even however much time has passed, it can still bring you back to a place where they were alive. So
I'm honestly not even going to pretend to have anything said here, so I'm just going to move on to the next question. Do y'all think that y'all have become catastrophist or even pessimist after having lost somebody? Do y'all have that lens on where I don't think anything good can ever happen to me now?
100%. Like, I can't speak for everybody. I was a very overly happy, obnoxious child. For those who know me now as the most positive person. But it definitely was an instant switch of, I do sadly see the world in a worst case scenario mindset. It is something that you just are like, well, life sucks. So everything sucks. And you grow with that. Again, since it happened when I was 15, that's how you grow up. And it took a lot of time. Again, also shout out to my therapist on building that and like being like, the world isn't always a bad place. Good things can happen. You can still be happy and sad. So it is a lot of work to unturn, going on 15 years of pessimism and just seeing the world in a negative light, but definitely did turn me into a pessimist, and I saw the world in a very dark place. but it's working on seeing it in a better light.
Yeah, I think I definitely came out of this a pessimist, but it was a lot of work with the therapist, and now I'm a closet optimist. So now I present as a pessimist, but I'm like secretly like hoping for the best case scenario. But I did come out of it with so much anxiety and that anxiety came from catastrophizing.
Yeah.
I think I have so much health anxiety because my dad died very suddenly, and so we didn't have any post-mortem or anything done on him, which messed me up honestly, because I don't know
What to look for. Yeah.
What to look for,
Absolutely.
yeah. And so I think that is something that I'm still dealing with, and I'm working with a therapist on is to like figure out how not to catastrophize. I'll let you know how it goes. I'll keep you posted.
I think when you come out of an experience of grief, it's really hard not to just be pessimistic all the time and just assume the worst possible scenario. I think it also happens just with your loved ones. You're like, how much time do they have? Because it's always on your mind, like the people who are left, and that's a very heavy thing to have to sit with all the time.
Absolutely.
You both shouted out a therapist. I'm going to shout out Elsie, who's my mom, because I live with the world's biggest optimist, and I think that having that energy around has really helped me kind of shift my perspective a little bit, but I'm not going to lie and say that I don't look at the world very differently now.
Well, I guess that's why we are calling the video coexistence in our grief, right? Okay, thank you for that. I think we've reached our very, very last question.
Where do y'all stand on gratefulness, and how has loss affected that?
It is wild to say that grief has really shown a lot of good in people. Now this is where I'm going to start. We are very lucky to have amazing people in our lives. Shout out to the Francis family, who is family friends, that they did stuff for us that you didn't have to do. They didn't. They're parents of my sister's friend, my friend. There are people that just did above and beyond. Still to this day, they are just amazing people, and the love and the support that we saw from people coming to do laundry, coming to bring food, just sending love, sending anything. My family talks about this all the time, that we'll never be able to fully express our gratitude for this family. And it just made me very grateful for amazing people in my life.
I did not follow that. Yeah, I think it made me so grateful for like the people I do have in my life, like my mom, my brother. I think I felt like wanting to cling and hold on to them. It made me look for the good moments and the memories with them, because it really teaches you that nothing is permanent. And I used to take it for granted before. I think I used to take my dad for granted before, which I struggled with now, like when I was grieving, that I did that. But yeah, and again, the people who showed up, you showed up for me, Xenia, which...
It is the base of our friendship. It is.
Yeah, and I don't think I was able to express that gratitude, but I felt it, you know, and I was grateful to have friends who showed up with food, or friends who just sent me a message being like, thinking of you, or things like that. It meant so much, because grief is such a, like, emotions are such a funny thing that they isolate you and also help you build connections with people who are going through the same thing. But I felt isolated because I didn't think that anyone understood my grief or understood what my experience of my relationship with my dad was, or the circumstances of his death. I didn't feel like anyone really understood what I was going through, which, looking back, I'm so grateful to have the support system that I still have. But yeah.
Those first few weeks or months after the loss, I think it's all just a blur, really. Like, you don't remember anything, you're like in a cloud. But when you look back on it, you really understand how much people tried to be there, even if in the moment you weren't very thankful for it because you just didn't have the strength to be. But you look back on it and you can see that there were a lot of people who just dropped everything to be there for you.
Again, my best friend, we've been best friends since we were 5. The day my sister passed away, she was at my house at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're 15. 15-year-olds don't know what to do, but she knew she had to be there. And just being there just means so much. So I feel like this circles back to the original question, your first question is just being there means more than anybody will ever know.
Y'all have left us much better equipped than we were at the start of this video to be there for people with grief. So a very, very huge thank you for for allowing yourself to be so vulnerable in my very, very first video and dropping these emotions that were absolutely necessary. I'm always going to wish, hope, and pray that y'all have the grace to carry your grief the way y'all so gracefully do every single day. And yeah, I think with that, this does come to an end. So thank you very, very much for being here and for sharing.
Thanks, Enya.
Thanks, Enya.